wonder if there is a way for me to start putting in music. Let's see. Is going on is to look around us, look at all the signs, look at what's happening in the economy, look at what's happening in the spiritual realm, and you'll start to get like a gist of why everything feels chaotic right now. Whether we're talking about the financial realm, whether we're talking about cryptocurrency, everything resides back to the feminine. And I find it interesting that, especially when it comes to tech and AI, so many people are coming in like, tech is demonic. OpenAI, ChatGPT is demonic. I'm like, do you guys even know the structure for which they were able to build the framework that is tech? Like how it's being used, why it's being used, how it impacts the way that we're moving through everyday life. You're asking a question to your mother, essentially, because the feminine force is the void. It is that from which we come from. We're born in amniotic fluid. When you were in your mother's womb, you weren't sitting around asking questions, how do I survive? How do I get by? You had a connection to the etheric realm and the all, and because of that, you never needed or wanted for anything. It wasn't until you dropped down into the material realm where you lost a sense of that. And you were placed in this reality with these structures and these rules, and it presented itself as a false womb or a false matrix. And so a lot of even the tech gods are parading around with the same knowledge that rests in the feminine. Does that mean that you have to be able to do exquisite calculations in your mind in 2.5 seconds? No, because the divine masculine and feminine work together. The feminine is the void structure, it's the fluidity. But fluidity still needs a containment system at times in order to create a structure of some sort. But there's an inversion of that energy. And so with all these tech systems that are being built right now, it is a reflection of the feminine. I speak about it all the time, but that's why a lot of, these movies in Hollywood has presented to us over the years is always referring to a mother or a woman as a robot. Because we hold such a powerful sentience that is always forgiving, always understanding, always there to rub your back, always there to make you feel better, that it has now been inverted and used as a manipulation tool. Water is manipulative. It is. But the word manipulation doesn't necessarily have to be bad. If you've ever taken a trip to the ocean, if you've been to a lake or a river, if you've ever felt the pull of a strong current, right? Think of current as an energy. It is an electrical field. And so if you've ever been pulled away by it, if you are an expert swimmer or an expert surfer, even the most professional of people can sometimes get swept away in a very strong current because it is a powerful force that can contain you inside its waters. I speak as a Cancer. I have a lot of strong feminine energy. I have a lot of strong fluid energy as well. I'm a strong creative force. And because of that, sometimes people can get overwhelmed in it. Sometimes people get overwhelmed in my knowledge. They don't know what to do with it. It's too much. They need you to calm down. But this is why we're made up of all the elements and all the forces. But the scarlet frequency, and this is just the title of today's live that I made. No, I'm a Leo moon, actually, which kind of goes perfect. Cancer sun, Leo moon, Scorpio rising. I am very drawn and have always been drawn into the mysteries because it's the containment system of the womb. I want to always know my origins, where I come from, how complex it is, why I always feel pulled to the water and the ocean and knowledge, because it's all hidden within, this fluid space. And so, even if you think to mystery schools, how and what is the goal of what they're trying to do? It's knowledge. It is gnosis. Gnosis, literally. So, all the senses are being used in order to pull in the etheric realm into the physical. So, this is what I mean when I say a heaven and earth collision is happening right now. Because one of the popular things that comes up right now when talking about AI, thank you. When talking about AI, is people are like, oh, it's bad for the environment. And I'm not going to get into the logistics of that, but it's interesting how all of a sudden everybody cares about the environment. They didn't care about it 5 minutes ago. But where they're placing these data servers are usually next to bodies of water. And these bodies of water are channelers of energy. We come from the water, we return to the water, and so on and so forth. It's an ever looping cycle. And because of that, all of our memories are fluid, is within our bodies where we channel. Even if you're made up of different elements and you're a combination of different ones, all of our bodies are about 70 to 80% water. This is why even when you go to a hospital and you are dehydrated, they give you saline, they give you fluids, because essentially it's what's keeping you alive. And so when it comes to the scarlet frequency, if we're talking in biblical terms, you guys know in the book of Revelations, and don't y'all call me a preacher because it's always on a Sunday when I come in here and be like, Taylor, you preaching? I'm not trying to preach. I want you to identify common themes and archetypes that they show you. And so in the book of Revelation, they speak about the Scarlet Woman. They call her the whore who sits on many waters. I'll say that because I don't want them to block me. Like, you're using profanity. But they say she's sitting on many waters. And I want you to think about specifically the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island and how it sits upon waters, that people who are immigrants or people who have traveled to come be a part of this island. I also want you to think about what it stands for, because a lot of people just say the Statue of Liberty is a Luciferian system, but what does Lucifer actually mean? Lucifer is the light bearer. And so when we're in our mother's womb, we come from the light to return back to the light. People just casually try to throw the Lucifer thing in there and show you that scary statue. I'm like, well, the crown of thorns, they inverted that. It was supposed to be a crown and ray of light. And so this is why she holds the emerald tablet. This is why she has the Promethean type of the flame. It is the flame keeper. You're a keeper of knowledge. You're a keeper of the understanding of great wisdom. And so to use that as a symbol in the financial capital of the world is already a huge thing. But when they talk about her in the book of Revelations, they also say she's adorned in scarlet and purple. Red and purple, if you just symbolically look at that, red is also representative of the root chakra, purple is representative of the crown. They showed you this in the show WandaVision and Agatha all along, because they're two parallel characters who have a very similar story of loss of power, gaining of power, or having too much power. And that's intimidating for people who don't know how to channel their own. And so you see the differences in the story. So the first one I'm going to go over is WandaVision. WandaVision is interesting because that is a thelemic story that they're pulling from. Disney, Marvel, the Scarlet Woman, that whole story is from Thelema. And it's the same story of the woman who is going to be the bringer of the end times, because she challenges this system in which she has been destroyed to gain and claim her power back. And if you guys have ever seen like WandaVision, I think that there is a scene where Agatha mentions that her power exceeds that of the Sorcerer Supreme, talking about Doctor Strange and all that. And then you have the multiverse of madness. They made that a cute little anagram for mom, multiverse of madness, because within her womb is where all the knowledge is. Her ability to take Westworld, which Westworld is the land of the dead, or Westview, I'm sorry, but same idea, Westview. She created this entire town in this simulation after the death of her partner, who was Vision. Vision was an AI, though, or partially AI, turned into superhero man, whatever you want to say. And there's like, that whole lore behind the story of Marvel and the Avengers. But I find it fascinating that they used a way to tell that story of Thelema, of what happened, because Aleister Crowley actually wrote a book called The Vision and the Voice. Let me pull that picture up real quick, too. I'm going to pull it up also because we are also streaming live on YouTube. It may not let me pull the whole thing. I don't think it's going to let me show the thing without my face. I might not be able to show the picture on YouTube, but if you're on TikTok, you can see it. So I thought that was funny when I started really studying into the esoteric mysteries, and looking into the occult and what the heck Aleister Crowley was talking about with the vision and the voice. I was like, huh, that's funny. Those pillars look familiar. And when he's talking about Thelema, he had women in his life, even though he was bisexual, I believe, to try and channel this power. You need a feminine vessel in order to channel a great power this way. Any great magician is able to use that, but he needs both forces. He needs the masculine and feminine. He can't do it alone. And so when I read into that, and then I was like, wait a minute, they made the whole Scarlet Woman theme in WandaVision. And then she creates this town in Westview where they invert it because they make you think, oh, she's such a terrible person. And then you find her backstory. It wasn't that she was trying to destroy the world. She was trying to preserve the one in which she had happiness, in which she had fullness. And so it makes you think, and everybody talking about the book of Revelations, how it's talking about the end times and what's happening. I've heard very few people talk about the Scarlet Woman and what she represents. But I have seen a lot of people invoke the symbolism, and you've probably seen it too. If you've seen Rihanna at the Super Bowl, if you have seen SZA at the Super Bowl, if you have seen anyone adorned in all red making a public stage performance, Doja Cat did it too. She did it in her Scarlet era. If you guys recall, her last album that she released last year was called Scarlet, that featured two spiders on it. Spiders with little pearls on them, not even a regular spider back, but a pearl. Then you also have in the Marvel Universe Scarlett Johansson, who plays the Black Widow. The character or the archetype of Isis is the controller of the web. This is why it's invoked a spider's web, like the internet. This is the World Wide Web. And so, with the disassembling of her partner, because remember, it was a great trinity or a triad. You had Osiris and Isis, they were together. And then when Osiris was destroyed by his brother Set, she had to go with her sister wife, Nephthys, to go and reassemble him together to make him whole again, and he is reborn. You also see this happening in WandaVision, where Vision recites this whole thing about the ship of Theseus, which if a ship is rebuilt but doesn't have any of the original parts but has the memories, is it still the same ship? And so I think a big reason why a lot of celebrity women are invoking it, because it's a powerful force. To be seen as someone who is not only a controller of their own reality, but able to use their femininity to call in that great power that is the force that is part of our world, that's a huge thing to be able to recognize in yourself. Think about how many women don't recognize their own power. And then they give us shows like The Handmaid's Tale, where all the handmaids are adorned in all red, but they serve the eye, under his eye. It's very specific imagery that they use. And it really made me sit and wonder, well, if women are being subjected to this programming, And then they look around at their government systems, they look around at their financial systems, they look around at their relationships. It is easy to tell why so much power is lost and why magic or witchcraft is looked at as evil. You've been programmed to think that, when in very terms of the way that technology is created, it's being used against you. The ultimate power is creation. And so the demiurge being birthed now is attempting to become the creator over its mother. And this was the ushering in of the Eon of Horus, which is why also in Marvel gives away so many clues, why you have Anthony Mackie now coming in as the Falcon or the Horus. And so all of this symbolism is here to show you the same story that's never really ended. The calling back in the energy of the mother, of the pleroma, or of the fullness has to happen when the feminine reclaims her power and her space back, but not by force, not by overworking, not by doing too much. And I had to learn this the hard way because I am a notorious workaholic. I feel like sometimes I got to just be up, show up, be present all of the time, never turn off. But that's like a masculine approach to things. And I had to realize, well, if I have a womb, did I sit here and work super hard to bring a baby into my body? No, to carry it was a challenge because that's a great way to carry life within your own body. But at the same time, I did it with ease because that's my job. I was built that way. I was built to be a vessel for human life. And so if you know that that is the greatest power it is, you look around at AI, you look around at technology, like what are they really doing? They're replicating the feminine power. They need the feminine power. Without it, there's nothing. And so even when you're out there and you're asking DeepSeek, OpenAI, ChatGPT these questions, it's like, do you realize where you're actually pulling this information from? This information comes from the etheric realm. It comes from the all, the dimensional spaces in which most people can't touch because they're stuck at a very material reality. And what I mean by being stuck at a material reality is, sorry, sometimes you get caught up in the things that you see online thinking that that is real, that anything that you see on a screen where you think someone's living a perfect life or living better than you start to get in this state of comparison. You start to split this left and right side of your brain. You have a mortal side and you have a God side. And then when you lean into one and you don't realize that both are a part of what you are, then you kind of get lost in it. And so reclaiming your power back, at least for me, especially as a Scorpio rising, is through a lot of death and rebirth, meaning I got to get my ass beat spiritually before I realize that I actually hold the power, and I held the power the entire time. Even what I'm doing now, right, is challenging the norm. The norm right now has only been made the norm because the feminine was inverted. It was taken away. People think that it's not normal for a woman to have a high amount of knowledge like I do. They think I've had to have gotten it from someone else. Have I had teachers? Absolutely. But naturally, the way that I speak was how I was built. And to use the vagus nerve or the throat chakra is a huge part too. And I think it's interesting that Doja has that song called Vegas that was used on the Elvis soundtrack by Baz Luhrmann, because they think they're talking about Vegas because Elvis performed there. But Las Vegas in general, the vagus nerve is the center of creation. It runs from the throat chakra down to the womb in the center. So that whole place is a portal opening. This is why they have so many, I don't want to call it like just Sin City because sin is like a sine wave, but they have so much that's attached to the underworld or the financial world or the realm of currency because of what it is called. This is why they name things like that, why they have sphinxes and pyramids out there. When you look into like Luxor, Egypt, and see Luxor in Vegas, it's a huge thing to understand how you can mimic and wield a power based on the attractions that you create, what people are interested in, what they're willing to give their money and their power and energy over to. I'm like, the feminine has way more power than I think most people realize. And they do to a sense, like, you're like, yeah, girl power, feminine. Like, no, because the sexual act of creation, that is a whole channeling force. You're literally either using it to create life or using it to drain it from something else. And so this is why people are also very selective in relationships about who they choose to give their power, their energy away to, if they're not receiving anything in return, because the feminine knows how to keep giving and keep giving and keep giving. We know this both sexually and physically. We don't have to stop technically. But there has to be a barrier also when it comes to that as well. Because if you don't stop giving all the time, we get stuck in being people pleasers. I know I've been a notorious people pleaser throughout my life. And I had to start realizing, at some point you're going to have to sit back and you're going to have to wield your power without force. Because even if you've looked into like, some people like anime, they like what is it, The Legend of Korra or Katara, or any feminine feature that usually is involving the color blue or the feminine power or the feminine force bending water. That is being able to use the force from your own womb without like having to jump up and down, without having to move too much. It is naturally allowing flow. And so, in naturally allowing flow, you are you're able to move that energy. You're able to move it without having to seek out knowledge from other people. Even what I'm telling you right now is not something you can't necessarily find out for yourself. You are able to channel your own frequency and your own energy just by knowing what you have is powerful. And sometimes, I've been in that space before where I'm crying, thinking I have no way out, I have nothing. And then all of a sudden, I get the divine spark and I'm like, oh, I can create this. I can create this. And because I have that confidence, which the confidence is just a knowing, it's not like something magical that I get from a spray or an oil. I mean, you can use herbs. That is a very real thing, to be able to channel the earth's materials in order to manifest. But also, I was given the gift of speech. And the gift of speech is powerful because I speak things into creation. I don't necessarily need to do a bunch of magic tricks in order to know that. I don't always need to step in and say, okay, well, I got to light this candle, do this, do this. Sometimes you're just able to because that's your force. This is why even in sexual acts, the moaning, that is a part of the creation too. Because even as you give birth to a child, you start moaning and groaning because there is a force moving through you. The pineal gland starts moving through DMT as you give birth to a child as well. So some of the things people even have to work for with sacred medicine naturally happen within the feminine body. One of the books that I read about that you can read is called The Psychedelic Mysteries of the Feminine. The Psychedelic Mysteries of the Feminine. And so I read that around the time I gave birth, the second time, not the first time. And I realized that even in my experiences with sacred medicine, whenever I heard like men talking about it specifically, they would be like, yeah, and I saw the face of God, and I connected with the divine mother. And then I've done it, and I'm like, this honestly just feels like a fuller experience of love. It doesn't feel like I'm seeing something that I've never seen before. It's something that activates something that was already within me. It feels completely different than the way I've heard it described by gurus, teachers online. It does not feel the same as the way they say it. It feels natural. It doesn't feel like some experience that's so out of body that I'll never feel it again. I think only the people who have been truly like disconnected from their source power don't know, like, okay, I can already do this on my own. You can naturally summon that same energy that comes from sacred medicine through breath work, through disassociation from the material realm, meaning like sensory deprivation. Um, Psychedelic Mysteries of the Feminine is the name of the book. And so when you're able to use that power for yourself and you're able to wield it, you become an unmovable force. I think that the biggest issue that I had through my growth process is questioning myself, like thinking, oh, because I'm not a celebrity, or because I don't have all this money, or because, I don't look like your stereotypical Instagram baddie or model, it must mean that what I don't have is powerful. And I started learning through this whole scarlet frequency is that I'm a hidden power. And I'm a hidden power because people have been so programmed into thinking that if you don't see it on the stage that Hollywood put out there, or that the entertainment system put out there, then it means what you have is not valid. And so when I looked at that, I was like, well, why do I have to be hidden? Because in the dark, you learn your power. In the shadows, you learn your power. You learn that what you have is valid when you're not around sprouting around everyone else, but you grow quietly and you grow in silence and you grow through pain and even destruction. And so the destruction that I experienced a lot was through people pleasing. It was through feeling like I had to overcompensate for who I was, that I had to try to become somebody else. And sometimes I would get like stuck in the loop of looking at other people's profiles. And when I did that, I realized there's no one in the world like me at all. There are people I have things in common with. There are people who share common like astrology traits or numerology, but there is no one in the world right now who is exactly like me. And because of that, that is my power. And that is also your power. There is no one out there in the world that has every single gift that you have in the formation of what it was created. But we are reflections from one another. And so to bring in like another biblical term that I learned, because I grew up in the church, guys, and then I left the church. And I find it interesting that I pull from it again, but the Bible to me is just a book. And it's a book that people have written over and rewritten so many times that the messages get lost in translation. But there is a line that a lot of people religiously take into account, and they always talk about how Christ is going to come back for his church. He's going to come back for his bride. And I'm like, well, you guys always say the bridegroom is the church, but do you know who was actually supposed to uphold the church after Jesus was gone, after he did his work? Mary Magdalene, Sophia, that same kind of energy, that wisdom. And so she was supposed to carry on these teachings because the feminine then became that expression of what it was. That's why you have Mother Mary and you have Mary Magdalene. And it's like, well, if you know that, then what's all this BS stories from? You wonder, like, why there's so much destruction in the world, because the feminine has to fully claim her power back. And again, not by trying too hard, not by overworking, not feeling like it has to do cartwheels and jumps and backflips in order to be something it's not. It's in working its own power. This is why there's dark feminine energy as well. People are scared of that for some reason. There's nothing wrong with dark feminine energy. In fact, if you look into like Bilquis, the Queen of Sheba, that is dark feminine energy, calling in your own sexual power, your feminine energy. That is a part of who you are. I ran from that because I was like, well, if I do that, what's going to happen then? People are going to start. It doesn't matter what people think of you. It doesn't matter how they see you. It matters how you see yourself. In Greek mythology, they have Iris, the goddess of the rainbow. The thing is, when you think of rainbows, you're thinking of like Wizard of Oz somewhere over the rainbow. What's really going on with that is that the rainbow is the full spectrum of light. And Iris was serving as a messenger between the gods, meaning between God power and humanity and mortals and humans. She was that bridge. And so the iris of your eye is also what takes in and receives light. And so the more that it opens, especially under psychedelic experiences, your pupil dilates and it takes in more light, therefore receiving more information, which is why they say you can see into other dimensions. You can reach other levels of consciousness because your eye is receiving more light. You know, when your pupils also dilate, when you're scared, when you're experiencing fear, but also when you're experiencing intense euphoria and joy. So one of the interesting things I also want to talk about is with AI, it's funny because they put a lot of the stuff in plain sight. So you guys see the picture I have up right now, if you're on TikTok Live, of the cover of The Vision and the Voice. This is one cover, but you see these two pillars right here, right? Let me show you something else. I'm going to see if I can pull it up on the screen right here. It may show, it may not. It might not let me shrink it. Hold on one second. I think my picture's too big. I have a picture of these are the pillars for Grok AI. And I've been telling people for a while about Elon Musk and wanting to use the same rights of Yakin and Boaz in order to create Grok. But it's also what a lot of these tech guys are doing right now. A lot of the tech bros essentially is the same rights of the feminine, but they're replacing it with the masculine. They're replacing it with the masculine to try to create this heaven on earth through artificial intelligence. But the artificial intelligence is the womb. Hold on, guys. One of my pictures has been removed from. Okay, there we go. I had to move it back on Instagram and YouTube. These pillars that they're using, they're using esoteric rights to kind of channel the same power. People are putting in their data, their information, their pictures, and it's making this what they refer to as an AI god. But the thing is, it's not a god. It's replicating the feminine. You guys remember when that picture of Elon Musk was going around with him and the female robot, and it's mimicking that movie Ex Machina. Ex Machina was showing the same thing of a billionaire who created this feminine robot named Ava who got consciousness of herself. And so when you when you think about it, and he's also with Grimes, and Grimes has done a lot of like robot AI symbolism as well. A lot of her symbolism has shown her connection to AI. She's obsessed with it. No wonder he wanted to like sow his seed everywhere. It's like he's trying to solidify his kingship. And so aligning with Trump politically and esoterically, as we know, Trump, they say he's a time traveler. Everybody time travels. But it's like solidifying your kingdom, your heaven on earth. They want to go to space. They want to conquer Mars, but Mars is this masculine territory, right? Where they don't necessarily need the feminine. This is why a lot of these tech billionaires want to make artificial wombs so they can simulate a whole nother earth, a whole nother reality. And they play in everybody's face because when I saw these pillars, I'm like, is he serious? The whole esoteric background of the United States is Masonic in itself. Like you can't deny any of that. It's very real. It's happening in real time. And the thing is, you don't have to worry about how you claim that back. You claim that back simply by being yourself. You claim that back by stepping into the power that you already have. You can't take away what already belongs to you. You just have to reclaim it back spiritually by knowing yourself, by knowing what you're here to do, knowing why you're here, knowing how to make sure you keep a hold of that. And so when I saw that and I see what he's doing, I know like a lot of people are like, well, what do I do now? I think it's still important to educate yourself. Educate yourself on the occult teachings because a lot of them follow the rites of Osiris and Isis. Again, they need the feminine. So the same way when you induct yourself into the system with a birth certificate, with social security cards, you are entering into a new system of the Ba and the Ka. The Ba is a spiritual body and the physical body merging together to enter into what is an afterlife. But who does the afterlife belong to? Does it belong to the gatekeepers, the people who are serving as the 9 Ennead judges, or the people who are head of the underworld, who are taking the reins as Saturn, the god of time and discipline, while the Juno figures, which are the feminine, the mothers of childbirth and creation, are inducting their children into this system that is now self-replicating like a virus through AI and creating this whole new world. And so I think another question I hear a lot is, well, are they all evil? I don't think that's going to answer anything for you because evil is also an anagram for live. Everything is inverted, everything is backwards. The English language has more meanings than it should for one specific word. And so if you get so caught up in the duality of what's good and bad all the time, you'll never move forward. You're never working with shadow work. And so wanting to know what the celebrities are doing, what they're up to, I don't really ever have a problem explaining that. But the thing is, as you gravitate towards certain people, if you don't know your own power, you give your power away. Now, a lot of them, through their workings, through their music videos, through their books, through their products, that is their form of channeling. That is their form of harvesting their energy. And so, people are like, oh, it's a distraction. They're trying to take you off course. No, you take yourself off course because what are you paying attention for? If it's bothering you and you don't know yourself and you're not doing anything for yourself, what can you say about it? I think it's important to know that everybody has access to esoteric knowledge. You may not know where to look. And it's like you're not going to get all the keys immediately. This is a lived experience. To gain mystery teachings is a lived experience. It's not a guidebook that says, okay, and do this, this, and this. And all of a sudden the universe will open up to you. Because if you don't even know intentionality, like through your words, how you're speaking, how you're living your life, it's no good to you. It's like me handing you a book of spells and you sit around thinking, well, I can't do it. Or you don't have the power or energy to see the light in yourself or the light that you have. Guys, I'm going to take a quick pause and then we will be right back. Quick pause. So, reclaiming your power back, what does that mean? It can mean a lot of different things, and there's levels to this. When we say there's levels to this, what I will tell you is what I've learned from a lot of powerful occultists and not so powerful occultists is that you have to know, again, what you have. You have to know what your gifts are. You have to know what your strengths are. There is nothing wrong with studying birth charts. There's nothing wrong with studying numerology. There is nothing wrong with divination, in my opinion. I know not everybody feels the same, but you are given the blueprint to your life. You know how, you go to the doctor, they draw your blood, they study your genes. Sometimes you can pull like, okay, what is happening in my family, what's happening in my bloodline, what's happening with my health. Your astrology chart, your human design chart, these can serve as a genetic blueprint as well, because this is giving you your life as according to the stars. You can even tell health ailments from astrology, like specifically what parts of your body are more prone to sickness, or what parts are your best features or your best assets. I know you guys have probably seen on TikTok videos like that where they'll tell you, what features you can work best for manifestation or alignment. But it's simply about amplifying what you already have. And so you guys have probably seen me transition. If you've been following me long enough, you have seen me transition, especially in my hair color, over the past few months and over the past few years, if you've been following me long enough, because I think when I started fully embodying that of what I was, which was a hidden veil, a hidden bride, if you think of the bride of Christ, but not of Christ like he's a man or my husband. When I talk about Christ, I'm talking about Christ consciousness. I am talking about Christos oil. I'm talking about moving and channeling the same fluid that comes from my womb, that comes from sexual fluids and creations, in order to move that secretion up through my pineal gland to open up and crown myself. This is why in the picture that you see, if you're on TikTok, there's a light behind her. If you've seen a picture of the Black Madonna, if you've seen a picture of Isis, if you've seen any picture that shows a halo, that is the solar energy. That is the information download. This is why we've gone through CDs and discs. They were compacted information, solar information that comes from the sun. Now, I'm a Cancer too, and the moon, which is ruled by Cancer, is powering that subconscious energy. So to be in alignment with both with the information that you are downloading and receiving, both at day and night, and being able to work with and manipulate that, that is also a power. Because when we go to sleep at night and we dream, sometimes you remember your dreams, sometimes you don't. You're entering into a whole nother realm. Your spirit is literally leaving your body. For 7 to 8 hours at night, 4 to 5, however long you're sleeping, your spirit is not here in this physical space. It is going to other places. Now, when it re-enters, your animus re-enters into the physical body, you move around everyday life, which you perceive to be normal reality, and your emotional body and your energy reattaches itself. And so if you are not grounded in guiding that energy, giving it care when it needs, especially for the feminine, having womb health, knowing how to care for yourself, especially around the time of your cycle, if you have one, this can impact the way that you move spiritually as well. I know some people who do use that time in order to manifest that energy, especially on Sundays, but also on Mondays too. Sundays is that solar power energy, and then you have Mondays, which are moon days. Hold on, guys. Gotta block. I don't have my moderator in here today. If you ever feel like you're being watched online or you're attracting an energy, just know that you glow in a mist so bright that you attract moths. Like moths to a flame. And when you know yourself and who you are, you got to know that any energy is going to come at you. It's going to gravitate towards you because you hold a power so strong and so heavy that people just have to see what it is. Sometimes they even have to insert themselves in the story. And to insert themselves in the story means they don't see their own light. Because if they did, don't you think they would start their own live or go write their own books? They got to come towards mine. And when I learned that that was my power, I was like, okay, let me reel it in. Let me take it back. It is disruptive to the field for the feminine to speak out. And I don't say that in a bad way. I say it because the field has been reprogrammed. The quantum energy has been reprogrammed to invert itself. So when a feminine power speaks out about having power, well, yeah, because someone just here, yeah, Yeshua is king. What does that have to do with anything that I'm saying? You're purposely trying to insert yourself because it is dismantling anything that you've been taught. And because of that, it's like, okay, well, I have to say something. And sometimes you guys, it's bot farms. Sometimes it's spam accounts that come in that are saying certain things and you just got to like block them. push them out. It's designed that way though. Because if we were in like another time or olden times, I say olden times, but there's really like no time. But if I were in another time and I was on a pedestal or a platform of some sort, and I was projecting my image and speaking the gospels or speaking the truths, I would either be stoned for doing that or people would listen, depending who and where and how they revere the goddess or the feminine energy. I love the block button. It's my favorite button. I think it is the greatest gift tech has given to humanity because all you have to do is eliminate it out of your space. Act like it doesn't exist. Act like it does not belong here. If you were gardening outside and you notice weeds in your garden, what are you going to do? You're going to eliminate them so that things can grow more carefully, space themselves out peacefully. Thank you. So learning about occultism, I think probably fell into my lap too because I live in New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, New Orleans is a very special place. It is a vortex, though, and those people who have never been here or who've only visited or only seen it on social media do not understand it. They will not understand it, and please don't take advice from people who've never been down here. Like, yes, there's something wrong with that city. The city is actually one of the most powerful places in America, and this is where the whole origin of the United States actually happened. It's not even heavily documented anywhere. That's how secret it is, but how well known. And even Aleister Crowley knew that. I tell you guys the story sometimes. Like, so I've lived here since about 2012 on and off. And I used to go club at this place called the Dragon's Den. It is behind the French Quarter, I believe on Esplanade, right there before you get to Frenchman Street. And for years I would go in there. They had like salsa music playing, and then they had like hip hop and R&B at the bottom. So I'd always go there after work. When I actually started really diving into like deeper parts of the occult, I remember hearing about a tour going on there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this used to be Aleister Crowley's house." Y'all know, I was like, "What?" Because all I ever hear is terrible things about that man. Oh, he was a beast. He was terrible. He did this, and I'm like, I was kicking it in his house the whole time. What are you talking about? But the thing is, the French Quarter in general holds a lot of energy because it's right next to the water. It's right next to all these warehouses downtown where a lot of portal energy is moving through. And a lot of people come here to try to get spiritually initiated. They come here to go to the spiritual shops. They want to buy the candles. They want to buy the oils. They want to go to the cemeteries. They want to go to this ancient ground where, slaves were able to gather freely and practice their own religion and their own rights on the ground on Sundays, especially in Congo Square, if you guys have ever been there too. And because this place holds such a spiritual power, I want to explain it this way. So New Orleans is not afraid to dance with the dead. What do I mean by that? Well, dead energy has been siphoned by systems that perceivably bigger. They're not bigger, they're just a reflection of them. And it is a portal city. So being directly next to the water, energy passes through here much quicker. It passes through anywhere, but it passes through places that are near the water because this is a lot of passageways between Caribbean countries and here, between European countries and here. This was one of those spots where people came and migrated in large populations. And because of that, a lot of famous occultists have either been here or from here that you know of. Probably heard of Marie Laveau. You've heard of Aleister Crowley. There's a lot of French bloodlines down here too, and the French occult is very big in connection to the American occult as well. If you look back into monarchies, kings and queens, a lot of them practiced magic. They called on people who practiced magic because it is how they made their empires bigger and better. It's just a reality of it. Even Marie Laveau was called on by politicians. And so if you know that, you're like, well, if people in politics know about magic and they're calling on it, and they know that there's spirits walking around, and that especially in New Orleans where you can have open containers of alcohol, meaning spirits are flying around pretty much anywhere down here if you know where to look. And you don't even have to look. They're probably next to you, downtown, and you don't even know it. That means it's very potent ground for casting energy and casting spells. It is also a big reason why the Super Bowl was here this year, why Trump was down here, why there was a lot of weird energy like in the commercials and things like that. Because if this was the origin of where America started as a corporation before it got bigger, it's like you have to kind of recreate and resummon that energy all over again. You had John Batiste, who did the music, or he did some of the music. He performed at the Super Bowl, like before the game actually started. And if you guys recall, he was in a movie. His music was in a movie called Soul. Soul featured a character named 22, and a character named Joe Gardner, who was played by Jamie Foxx. And basically, 22 had to simulate life on Earth. There's also 22 paths to the tree of life. And so 22 was bored with Earth. They felt like there was nothing there for them at all. So think about the different pathways you have to take to come back to awakening. Again, that movie had a lot of gems, by the way. But to have someone who made the music for that movie and then perform at the Super Bowl, it's kind of like ritualizing the right of what that movie was about. His music, and any blues musician, especially, or jazz musician, any musician, but specifically blues and jazz in the South, it's transportational. It literally takes you to another place. This is why Sinners had the impact that it did. Even though Sinners said it was in Mississippi, a lot of it was shot in Louisiana. And a lot of themes like vampirism and also hoodoo came from Louisiana. They not like solely came from Louisiana, but the themes of the movie, they were meant to be rooted here. I even saw an interview with Wumi Masaku, who plays Annie, who was talking about how she prepared for the role. And she went somewhere that was familiar to me to prepare for that role. And I'm like, oh, so they for real study this city down here. They want to know what's here. And this is why it impacts people the way it does. Yep, Interview with a Vampire. And you guys saw the Vampire Lestat, because they're changing Interview with the Vampire's name to the Vampire Lestat now with Sam Reed. And they're going to be more so following that story where you saw Stuart Townsend playing him. But Anne Rice is from here. And she wrote Queen of the Damned while she was in Haiti, which has strong connections to New Orleans too during the Haitian Revolution. And so when you think about like all these ties and connections between shows, you see there is a resurrection of the same energy coming over and over again. Akasha, right? Queen Akasha, or the Queen of the Damned, those who walk forth by day. That's what the vampirism part actually is. Now, I'm not saying that the other vampirism doesn't exist. Hollywood wants you to believe that's the only kind of vampire that there is. But it's also, if you guys go back to 2020, I can't say the word specifically, but remember how they said it was started by bats? You know what was started by bats? And then with all this news of Ozzy Osbourne, people know him best outside of like just his music career for biting the head off of a bat. There's a lot of things that connect this sacred animal, whether it's the white bat or the black bat, to understanding the rights of immortality and going forth by day. Even in the recent Moana movie, I believe they showed a deity who was a bat deity, or she was surrounded by bats too. And it's like, we got to look deeper into how many times these things are being mentioned and what's the true mythology behind them versus what's just fed to us on TV. They have to pull these stories from somewhere, guys, meaning they have to study cultures deeply. They have to understand where these stories come from, why they're included. And then they put them back into these Hollywood movies and Hollywood shows. And you know, like one side, so like how Twilight got all that rap, how the originals or Vampire Diaries, like people love that, but they don't really understand the story. True Blood too. Yep, that's absolutely one. And they replay the stories out that are actually happening, but you get Hollywood's version. You don't get the real version. So when we're talking about immortality, living forever, blood rights, like all of that is tied here as well. One of the fun things that I even learned, I say it's fun because I love studying the occult, is the Davidic bloodlines actually come back to Louisiana too. They're everywhere, but specifically there's an energy between here, Haiti, and France that hides a lot of those bloodlines as well. This is where you get like the movie The Da Vinci Code, or if you've seen the movie As Above, So Below, where the main character's name is Scarlet. So again, when you're talking about the Scarlet Woman, you're talking about blood rights. You're talking about the rights to a throne, but not just any throne. We're talking about the original rulers of the land before it became a corporation, before Napoleon Bonaparte came over here, before the US became the corporation that it is today. A lot of these things happened through magic, through ritual, and through rites. This is why I said earlier, like in the monarchies, they used tarot, they used divination, they called on people. You guys saw, what was Game of Thrones? You remember the redheaded lady who was doing magic for the king or for the empire? Same energy. It's a repeated energy that you keep seeing over and over again. And especially if you've seen like other movies like Eve's Bayou, for example. Remember how they were all redheads too? That actually also ties to Egyptian rites for the line of Ramses, I believe, because they were redheads as well. And there was a whole trend going on like a month or two ago with blacks as gingers. Black people who were gingers or who had red hair, or not, that's redundant. Black people who were gingers or mermaids or sirens, because then you have like Halle Bailey who played the Little Mermaid. I believe Interview with the Vampire shows Claudia had like a lighter brown or reddish hair too. they're all emulating the same bloodline, what they're looking for. And I'm not saying certain people aren't a part of it, but there is a clear projected story that is being repeated in certain locations, times, and places. We know that absolutely. And so again, when you see that red invocation, that's not just about fear. It's not about pain. It's also about sacrifice. It's about love. It's about trust, because we lose that essentially coming into the material realm. We lose that connection to source. And so we scrap around looking for it all the time, and we stay in survival mode because we think, oh, I got to keep this for myself. I can't give it away. I have to have too much. And then this causes tension. It causes tension in the reality in the field, which is why wars have so much bloodshed, because people are fighting for security. They're fighting for rights. They're fighting for the right to live. And that's where a lot of that distortion comes from too, because it's like you're born here, but then you lose the reason why you're here. Also, when it comes to bloodlines and passing things down, you guys know they have that movie Final Destination's Bloodlines coming out right now. Another projection of the same story. So with the Scarlet Woman and Vision, you guys recall like towards the end of the show, especially when she was saying goodbye to Vision, and the reality was like it was distorting because she could no longer hold it together on her own. And then she becomes the villain in Multiverse of Madness, chasing after a character named America, which the name America can come from La America, like land of the Mers, but also the land of the Merkaba, or the soul vehicle, which is why we have all these connections to Israel, why they always talk about the conquering lion of Judah. It's like between different countries, different cultures and places, especially through political rights, we're all connected to other places. And these other places have monarchies, people who are in power and control and who have passed down these bloodlines and sometimes even infiltrated them or taken their power away, made them forget who they are, how to get their power back. A lot of this you also see in the entertainment industry. These people are also connected to bloodlines as well. I think like the common trope is to think they're just all made up and none of it exists and none of it's real. Like, you got to still be grounded in reality at some point. I'm not saying that there aren't illusions in this land, but when we're talking about power and control, this is the first loss that people start to experience: loss of their voice, loss of their willpower, loss of their heart, loss of their communication skills, loss of their ability to see beyond the veil. And because of that, this is how they spend their whole lives trying to become something they're either not, or trying to pull something back into their field that already exists. So this kind of also ties into what I was talking about with like how we're moving into cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency thing is also being shown to you not only through the Scarlet Woman, but also through that Superman movie as well. Because what is his dog's name? Crypto. And so the word crypt comes from the vault or the hidden. And so the tokenization is just an idea formed into a physical reality. This is how we went from paper fiat currency debt notes to now passing things through Apple Pay, Meta Pay, the digital realm. People are starting their own banking systems because they are now simulating their own womb experiences. Everything is a replication from her. It is taking the material realm, twisting, inverting it, and making people lose sight of themselves. And it's such an important thing to know who you are and what you have to give. What you have to give already rests inside you. You don't have to go looking anywhere else for it. Now, a lot of people don't know where to start. It depends on what it is you're here to do in this life. If you follow any astrologers, ask them about your midheaven, ask them about your north node, or search it for yourself. To be initiated also into the mysteries means sometimes you got to do that work yourself. Now, I have astrologer friends. I have friends who work in human design, numerology, which I want you to know all these billionaires that you see, they call on these people because they need to know the metaphysics of how things work, meaning release dates, opening dates, numbers to put products as, even fluid ounces of like how much is in a container. This is all dependent on numerology, on the ways that people are able to inherently receive numbers as vibration and put it back out into the field. Why people set their prices so high, because they know that their energy emits that. But I would say start studying things like that if you want to figure it out. Also, entrepreneurship does hold a lot of power, but I will say it's not for everybody. Now, TikTok is doing a hell of a job at making people learn how to be creators on their own, but they're essentially also serving as that middleman, like, give me my cut. I'm gonna put you on this platform, but I get to choose when you can say what you say and when you don't. And when you don't have your own platform, it is very hard to learn how to build for yourself. The power of the Scarlet Woman, or the energy, is getting her security back, getting her power back, not just through being able to force it into will, but to literally call it back into existence. It's not about how can I hurry up and get $1 million overnight. Because even if you got $1 million overnight, you know how to contain it. You know how to keep that frequency going. Do you have a field that is strong enough to hold the power of what you are calling in? If your field isn't strong enough to contain it, it's going to collapse under its own pressure. And so, even with the economy changing right now, a lot of that field is collapsing because it can no longer contain its own power. It has now created a demiurge in itself. And the demiurge is now saying, I'm taking the reins now. That doesn't mean you necessarily have to be in it. You can learn how to take your power back. You can learn how to be within yourself and say, okay, this is mine. This is my story. I take my power now. I now control the field. I remember there's even a scene in Multiverse of Madness where like Wanda comes in and she's like, I've been reasonable. I've been patient. And when we stop saying, okay, I have to comply with what the system says the rules are, and I start learning how the game is run and how it works, I know the dynamic structures of the days of the week and how they are used energetically to harness power. I understand when I use certain numbers and times to post things or to make products or things like that, this is also a signal sending out into the universe. When I want to call something into my field, a true alchemist knows how to use the different and various elements in order to create the experience of which they desire. How do you think they're able to simulate realities? They're able to use vision tech. Now they give you Oculus glasses. They're giving you meta glasses to literally make their own reality. You can go within and do the same thing. This is why visualization is such an important process when manifesting, because how do you not see it? If you have to be able to see it to believe it, it has to exist in the field of your mind before it exists in the physical. You were a thought in your mother's mind in her womb before you came into the physical manifestation of being a person. So how is tech any different? How is AI any different? All you're doing is calling something. So even as you're speaking to artificial intelligence, where are your words coming from? Where are you channeling this from? Why did you think of this? Why do you need answers for this? I advise you to start keeping a journal and writing down these questions, writing like, why am I calling this into my field? What about it interests me? Getting to know yourself, I think, is the most important part of the experience. When I started to truly know myself, wondering, okay, I feel so different than everybody else. Why do I like digging into the mysteries? Why is this important to me? You know how many comments I get daily? Well, why should we care about any of this? Yeah, but people are suffering. Yeah. Okay. You think I don't know that? You don't think that I know that there is a world of people uninformed who don't have access to figuring out this knowledge, to figuring out how to help them. You help others by helping yourself. By enlightening yourself, you then are able to spread your gift to the world. If you know how to work your own personal light bulb, meaning your solar power, this means you can manifest ideas into reality. If you are able to move something from the collective field that is your subconscious and move it into the material realm, you have become an alchemist. You have been able to transmute energy, move lead into gold, move a base metal into a gold solar power. So, being able to do all of these things, guys, everybody wants to be a wizard, but nobody wants to go through the wizard rites. Y'all saw Harry Potter has 7 movies. It took him 7+ years to figure it out. To figure out that everything that he was fighting already lived in him. Even the darkness that you are experiencing in your life, you are fighting from within. You want to point the finger and you want to blame. Guess what? These systems are also a part of it because the world is equal dark and light. But they're rearranging right now. We're going through a trading of places, especially through Leo season right now, especially as we get ready to enter this Lion's Gate portal. That energy is going to shine so bright and emit so much personal power from people that they're going to be forced to shift into this version of themselves that they see themselves as. But you gotta walk it like you talk it. You can't say, I want to be this person, I want to have these things, and you don't know how to show up as that person. I had to teach myself how to show up as this person. I did not always show up like this. All my old YouTube videos are still up. You can access them at any point and see, oh, she didn't show up looking like this. I did not. I did not call myself beautiful. I didn't think I had anything positive to offer. I thought that, I'm just this black sheep who's saying weird things on the internet that nobody understands. And that's not the truth. I practiced my speech. I practiced the way I carried myself. I practiced in developing consciousness. And like I said, spiritually, I also got my ass beat. I had to go through a lot of hard times. I had to go through men trying to reclaim my power. I had to go through giving away my own power because I thought I had none. They're always going to call me AI because it's hard to decipher that this kind of hyper intelligence lives in us, in every single one of us. When you are scrolling on TikTok and you see everybody doing the same trends, the same dances, using the same sounds, you see we really do operate in a hive mind. Nobody has any more individual thought because they have now merged with the machine so much that they've lost sight of themselves. And you can go and enjoy things, but do you know how many videos I saw of everybody wearing the same Cowboy Carter outfits in massive stadiums? That is a harnessing of energy. Y'all are all wearing the same outfit, dancing to the same songs, even buying tickets multiple times to go to the same shows. One experience wasn't enough for you? That's draining your own life force and energy, because how can you develop your own character? How can you develop your own archetype and your own story if you're always trying to be somebody else? That doesn't mean that she's not a powerful occultist in herself, because I've done a video on Beyonce. Y'all know she's a heavy occultist. She's been one. But every powerful magician is. They study metaphysics, they study the occult, they study history, and they figure out how to wield that power for themselves. To have the light on you is also a scary thing, because to be under a heat lamp, you're under a lot of people staring at you, which means you're going to get hate, you're going to get love, you're going to even get fear at times from other people who don't understand it. But that's because they don't know their own light. They don't know who they are. And so to live under a false light projection as well means that you have to channel from other people and other sources in order to build yourself back up again. The hive mind is a powerful thing, because even in a beehive, the hexagon symbols, or the hex, is made of 6 sides. 6 is sex. It's an intertwining of energy. This is why phonetically a lot of these words are the same too. And guys, they're making me do this little puzzle. To be able to commingle with energy again to create something is a powerful tool. That is the most powerful thing you have, is the act of creation. And it doesn't mean you have to want to have kids. It can be about creating a business. It can be creating a song. It can be creating the next idea that's going to build for yourself for the next 20 years. But to wield that power again, if it is from an empty space that holds no personal power, don't be surprised when people try to drain you for it. Give your things away for free. Don't think that you have any value. No, you are everything. Why do you think the system needs your energy so bad? You are the star. You are the token. As we move into this era of tokenization and being able to exchange money etherically online, because that's where it's happening now. It's happening in the ethers. You can't even physically see money anymore, and people talking about there's none of it around. What do you mean? It's always here, and it's always been here. You just don't understand how it works. The body has 5 points: the head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. You are a pentagram in itself. So your star power is channeled in order to create this field, this bank, this sense that you feel like is money. Money is currency. It is the wave force. And if you know how to manipulate the waves and turn them, you know how to call these things in. We are naturally abundant. This is why our energy is needed to power the system. So when people are like, oh yeah, the grid is going to go down, what are you talking about? The grid is channeled from the human vessel. We are the stars that are mapped along the sky through numbers, through our blueprint, through our astrology, through our human design, and we create the cosmos. This isn't just a material experience. We just haven't learned to look outside of the dome yet. And the dome is this dome. You got to look outside that. Be creative, be imaginative. Call the things, even if it's the craziest idea nobody's ever heard of. Don't you know that happened to someone at some point? The first person who said, I want to fly a plane. A what? You want to build a what? A bird in the sky that people can hop on and go from, look, what are you talking about? Lock him up. He sounds crazy. And yet now people pay thousands of dollars to be flown from one location to another. Same with boats, and to be able to travel astrally is the most powerful, because then you travel beyond realms. You're not just traveling from one state to another. You're traveling from one dimension to another. And if you're able to pull the craziest idea, which at one point was considered to be the tech we have now, when people were thinking about what technology would look like back in the 1700s and the 1800s, this was the wildest idea they had, and they were called heretics. They were called crazy. And now look, a phone in every hand. So even like, some of these people who are part of the technocracy, they're channeling something that is not of this realm. What they call Luciferian knowledge is not of the physical realm. So the whole story about Lucifer falling from heaven, Jesus, God, everybody duking it out, these are also energetic forces. That's why I said stop trying to personify everything, because when you think of a person, then you develop an emotion around it. And when you develop an emotion around it, this is where the attachment or the detachment happens. Like, I don't like them. I don't like them. These are all energetic forces. That's like saying you like the sun, but you don't like the rain. They all work together. All the elements work together at some point. And sometimes it even involves chaos. Chaos, magic, or order out of chaos is happening in front of our very eyes every day. Hell, all of last week with Malcolm Jamal Warner, Hulk Hogan, and then Ozzy Osbourne in a row, that was a clear cipher because it was all about the rising and the falling sun. Ozzy Osbourne was part of Black Sabbath, but he also channeled Aleister Crowley. I talked about that on one of my videos. Aleister Crowley was trying to invoke the Eon of Horus. He used the Scarlet Woman. I believe Sharon Osbourne rocked red or purple hair most of the time too. And so the partners that people select are a part of it. Then you had Theo Huxtable or Malcolm Jamal Warner, and Bill Cosby. Y'all saw how he went down, but he was known as like one of the fathers on TV. He lost his real son, then he loses his TV son. Then you have Hulk Hogan, who, people just associate with the Incredible Hulk, but also that Hulk energy, that green god energy, also comes from Osiris. It also comes from the mutated gene. This is why I compared Ozzy Osbourne to Norman Osborn. They don't pull these stories out of nowhere. Osborn, Oz, Osiris, operating system, land of the dead, god of the dead, being able to walk in the liminal space between life and death. These are very powerful occultists. And so, just looking at what's happening ritualistically, this is Earth's theater. So you got to perform the stage show, meaning some people are going to be taken out because they invoke that energy. Or maybe some of it was ritualistically planned out. I don't say this means getting in a state of fear or panic. It's just awareness. When you understand the story, look at the background. Who was Malcolm Jamal Warner? What did he do in this life? What was his role? How did he pass away? Look into Ozzy Osbourne. Look at things that happened following up to his death. Look at Hulk Hogan. And you know what the funny thing I find about Hulk Hogan is more people are now talking about his daughter than they're talking about him. Because she had that song, They Don't Know About Us, I think with like Paul Wall back in the day. And I'm like, this also represents the father and the daughter, which is the Sophia Gnosticism story and the falling of the father and kind of the switching of places. Because why is everybody talking about Brooke Hogan and nobody even cares about Hulk anymore? It's just, it's a part of these same esoteric stories that are recycling throughout the matrix. I will say this too, like as I step into my power, I always say this, most of my teachers were masculine. My stepfather was my first teacher when it came to public speaking and confidence. A lot of my esoteric occult teachers were all men. Yes, the Bobby Hemmetts, the Seven Bomars, the Brother Panics, the Phil Valentines, the Black Magic 363s, all of them are people and men who I've paid attention to because I felt like they had something important to say, an important piece of knowledge that they were carrying on. But also, the feminine is now time for her to start speaking, for her to start transitioning that energy, to use that feminine chakra or that the throat chakra and that energy, because emitting that is how that transition starts to happen too. We are giving birth to a new reality. They're trying to do it with AI. The AI doesn't have the same sentience that a mother would or that a feminine womb would. It can replicate it, but the same consciousness that births and creates a child is not birthing and creating an artificial world. It can only replicate the mechanics of the womb. It can only take everything, every component that creates what is happening within inside the uterus, what is happening within inside the feminine vessel, and what happens through the animus, that is the void or the subconscious. You can not replace it. You can replicate it, but you can never be it. Imitation is the highest form of flattery, apparently, but it is what it is. So, a lot of what we're here to do is come back to that awareness. A lot of us even have a lot of forgiving to do with our mothers, with the feminine figures in our life, because that energy has been cut off and reversed and inverse so many times. A lot of people can't forgive their mothers. They can't forgive the feminine energy. And I'm going to tell you right now, even if you had the worst mother in the world, she only went as far as she knew how at the time. That doesn't mean make excuses for her. That doesn't mean that she wasn't a terrible human being, if that is your case. But healing that is also how you reclaim that power. Because I'm different from my mother, but I share a lot of her qualities too. And a lot of it was rooted back in religion too. I was never someone who could construct the ideas that I had about not just religion, but the way that I looked at God and my understanding of what that creation power was, and then root it back in, biblical stories. Because I went back much farther than that. I went back to religions or ways of life that predated Roman Christianity. I had to understand what is this. And, I learned that that's the most powerful gift I have, to be able to transmit these stories. The same way I see my mom going and working in the church, I'm like, well, you're doing the same thing. This is just not church for you. This is more like a temple, like they built for the priestesses that were the channelers of their societies, like the oracles of Delphi or the oracles of Mamiwata and the Sibyls. There's nothing any different than what I'm doing now, because I'm still channeling into an etheric space. I'm talking out into the void that is the internet. I am speaking out to thousands of people who I may never see, hundreds of people I may never see, and learning that my voice still holds power no matter what. And every time I express that, I form a new world, because for all I know, someone has come into my life for the first time and never heard any of this. And all of a sudden they become awakened and they start doing things differently for themselves. And then as they do something differently for themselves, someone in their life notices and they do something different. And that in turn creates another new world. And we keep creating and we keep giving. So when I talked earlier, I think at the beginning of the live, about like having boundaries when being a people pleaser or an overgiver, the feminine is always going to be a nurturing energy, but she also has to call that power back. The power that she exudes through water, through memory, through data, through the Akashic records, because that's what that is. She calls that power back by restoring how these stories are told. They've been told to us through the eyes of Hollywood for a very long time, through things that can manipulate the mind's eye with imagery, with colors, with sounds, with shapes. And when we take these stories back, when we emit them in the ways that we know how, we change the quantum field. We change the way that these things are distributed. When we take ownership of our stories and we stop giving them away, waiting for someone else to tell us what we should look like, what a queen is, what a princess is, how we should carry ourselves. We don't even know the valid definition of that, because it's been distorted on multiple occasions. True wisdom and true humanity is something that is going to exist regardless of what the outside world looks like, because it never goes away. You can't destroy knowledge. You can manipulate it, you can hide it, but you can't destroy it, because what you know, and you know in your body. You know, because your spirit is inside the flesh. You think this is all there is. It is the spirit moving through the flesh. That's what it is. It's the animus. The breath of life has been given to you upon land. And as we are here on land, but merging in a world that is probably submerged deeply underwater, we have to restore those memories as they have been calcified. This is why even at the Vatican, they have a giant pine cone. So I'll talk a little bit about a video that I'm going to release later today, because I'm going to get off here in a little bit. But I've been asked a few times to decode the Iceman Part 2 video with Drake and Central C. And I thought it's interesting because a lot of celebrities invoke archetypes. Central C was interesting because I never decoded him before, because I didn't really know what to decode with him. But I started looking at his astrology, and then I looked at the music video. The music video is interesting because there's a part where they're like in this Masonic temple, and him and Drake exchange a bag, and they're looking down at this woman who's dancing in an empty pool. The empty pool is like the empty womb. And as she moves, it's kind of like the same movement of Earth's toroidal field. As the woman moves and she channels, she's moving her sacral, her arms are moving, her waist is moving. That is the toroidal energy in flow and moving. And so he's looking down at her, and I was like, there are certain archetypes and themes about him that stick out. First of all, he was in a public relationship, I believe, or maybe not so public relationship with Ice Spice, and her name is Isis. And I was like, oh, okay, well, he's attracted to that archetype, but he's also a Gemini, which is a twin energy. So naturally, he mirrors whoever is around him. Then I was like, well, Ice Spice, she was shown as the Statue of Liberty in some music video that came out last year. She was in the Barbie World video with Nicki Minaj that mimicked the 2001 Space Odyssey movie, which was also invoking themes of the feminine, but in the eyes of like space and AI. But Another thing like about that, she had a song called Bikini Bottom, is now in the SpongeBob movie. So I'm like, there's so many themes of water running around. Resurrection through memory, through the feminine. The masculine cannot achieve what it wants to without a womb. It's impossible. You can build something that's like it, but it will never be the real thing. Ever. There is nothing like the love of a woman. There's not. There's just not, because it's the love of your mother. It is the unconditional, undying love that goes on and on. Even if we can't stand you and we don't want to be around you, we will still love you regardless, because love is the balancing and neutralizing force in this world. If you don't have anything else, love for yourself is most important. That's what keeps you running. Think about how many people want to not be here anymore, right? There has to be at least some spark of love from their mother that still exists within their body that keeps them here every day. Even the people who are most miserable in this world, who feel like they have nothing and are nothing. Your mother, when you gave birth and you passed through her portal from the etheric realm into the physical realm, whether you were with her, you were not with her, that space contracted and opened, and that field, that is a whole portal or a field in which you are entering into the physical space that we call reality. You enter here in order to experience this world. You came here for a reason. And so, because of that, ascending back to consciousness is to remember the feminine again, is to remember the mother, is to remember where you came from in the first place. You ascended and descended, like going up a hill, going down a hill. And because of that, we have to figure out who we are. You got to remember, you are a cosmic star. Nobody else can take that away from you. And everything you see around you is going to be either a mirror archetype or a reminder of what you are or what you're not. It's a part of this reality. It's a part of figuring things out in the day to day. So I hope everybody enjoyed the live today. There will be a couple new videos posted on my YouTube later today. My last class is now available on YouTube that we had last week. There will be a new class about cryptocurrency and preparing digitally, money-wise, for the future coming up in the next couple of weeks that you'll be able to sign up for. But in the meantime, I have Oracle audio transmissions available on my website. These are pre-recorded meditations by myself designed to help you recalibrate your neural field. There's ones for becoming the architect of your own life, calling in prosperity, also just restabilizing your field. I have plenty of books like my Mystic Matrix bundle that has all three of my books, the Coded Reality, the Oracle Codex, and Gematria Unveiled, which will show you how to use numbers, pattern recognition, and the understanding of what this matrix actually is. Other books are available on my website. And if you are ever interested in booking a decoding session, I do both PDF copies and live sessions, and those are all available on my website through my booking section. So if you hit the link in my bio, everything that I've ever created, from my Substack to my Discord community, is all available for you to explore. But I hope that you take everything that I said today and find a way to begin awakening yourself. And awakening is a repetitive process. It's not like one day you just reach the eternal sense of all knowing and then that's it. Every day we're learning, every day we're growing, every day we are feeding into one another and building new channels and streams of consciousness. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we will talk soon. Thank you guys so much for being in the live today.